welcome to everyone. This is a Pajaro Valley Arts Gallery's Zoom salon that we've been doing over the last few years. And it's wonderful to have everybody that's joining us. We have three wonderful artists to present. And I want to introduce Hedwig, if you don't know her. Hedwig Hirshoff is our Zoom host, and I'm Rosie Penhallow. I will be the moderator. And a couple of details about what we need to do with our mics during the presentation. So each artist is going to present for about 20 minutes. And during that time, just to avoid any kind of ambient noise that would be distracting, please turn off your mics during their presentations. And then after their presentations, we can open the mics and raise our hands and comment and ask questions of the presenters before the next one begins. And then at the end, we'll talk some more. So tonight we have some really wonderful artists. We have Victoria May, Aidan Valenciano, and Kathleen Crocetti. We'll be uplifted and learn a lot from each of them. So the first artist that we'll be presenting is Victoria. So welcome, Victoria.
Thank you.
So we're honored to meet tonight Victoria May, multimedia artist. Victoria's intricately and exquisitely crafted works range from sculptures to installations to wall pieces, examining the often jarring juxtaposition, my words are just not coming out, juxtaposition of unlikely ordinary materials like delicately sewn lacy fabrics, cement slabs, and rubber tires that quietly speak to socially relevant, sometimes painful realities. Victoria is the program coordinator of Cabrillo Gallery, and she has been granted numerous exhibits and honors. So it's my pleasure to introduce you, Victoria.
Thank you. I'm just emailing the link to my mom, who is unable to get on. Great, you already have my statement. I'm gonna share screen. There we go. All right, so it's funny, Rosie, when you said I asked you what we should talk about, and you said, well, where you came from, you know, current work or whatever. And Janet Fine saw this picture, whoops, of me, and has this funny story that this is how my parents found me. Like, they didn't actually have me, they just found me here on this little trail in the Smoky Mountains. But I think that perhaps my parents took me all over the place as a kid because they were immigrants and they wanted to, you know, they were excited to be in this country and they love nature. And anyway, so I think I have a love for nature and the planet that comes through sometimes. I put my statement in, but Rosie did a great job of paraphrasing that. Yeah, and maybe just at the end part, I talk about using humor and delicacy to talk about the random element that exposes the absurdity, beauty, and vulnerability in our well-intended machinations. So fast forwarding, I'm kind of jumping around through my process. Back in 2000, from like 2009 to 2011, I was commuting a lot to San Francisco. And being you know, a lover of textiles, I like to find them in unusual places. And on my drives, I would be fascinated with you know, cargo, how cargo is strapped down, and you know, the use of textiles there. And around the same time, I was introduced, or not, I was introduced to the work of this South African artist, Nicholas Hlobo, and I had the good fortune to actually see his work in person at the Yerba Buena Arts Center in San Francisco. And he uses tire inner tubes, car tire inner tubes, and makes these wonderful sculptures with them. And I was really inspired by that. And around that time, I was at a residency in Wyoming. And so I was doing more driving, cross country trip driving, and was just thinking about, the land that all these trucks were driving across, and these materials that they're transporting that were, that have ultimately been derived from the land. Sorry, I guess I have some kind of timer on my thing that I don't know how to stop. So anyway, I had a solo show coming up, and I had a piece in mind that was kind of like a cargo net. And I actually found some of the materials, on the trip for this cargo net. And this was kind of a mock-up that I did while I was at the residency, and actually found this gigantic car tire, truck tire inner tube on the highway. So that was super exciting, kind of a cool coincidence. And if you don't already know, I'm kind of a scavenger. I like to use, detritus and found materials in my work. And so this was kind of a mock-up of that piece. And I was able to, work on it more. And this is how it turned out. It's called Materials Flow Management. And it was in a show called Maintenance and Operations. And it was kind of about, all the infrastructure around us. And I sort of wanted to expose, weakness in that by using textiles. Not that I think that textiles are inherently weak. They do pretty strong jobs, but it just kind of wanted to show the vulnerability in those structures that we rely so heavily on. And I had fun playing. And also this piece for me was also like a landscape. I'm fascinated with geological strata, and that's sort of evident here. And it comes out a little bit more. I actually got to show it a couple of times, and I wanted to try it without the cargo net. Without the net. And I got to show it in LA a couple of times like this. And so the sort of strata come out a little bit more, and it's made from a whole bunch of different materials. Some found, there's yoga blankets, there's like some army pant liners, army blankets, stuff I found at the Goodwill. And a lot of it I actually fabricated to look old, and also, was inspired by the stitching in Nicholas Slobo's work, and did some stitching there. After I had that show, I had sort of some downtime between shows, and I love to go to the Depot for Creative Reuse in Oakland and find materials there. And I found all these felt scraps from, they were obviously for something that was round, and they all had these round edges. And I just started to play, and I realized that I could, put them side by side and do a zigzag stitch on them, and, create a larger form. And also, by stitching the curves together, these wonderful undulations would result. And so I tried to cut them as little as possible, because I wasn't interested in using the material to its fullest. And and so it turned into this larger piece that's called Swell and Submerge. And for some reason, I love silly things like fake fur, and I just thought that the hardworking industrial felt should be complemented by some fake fur. So, to sort of heighten the organic effect of this piece. So that actually, just working that way, in that, following that random thing, I often like to be directed by my materials. And so that was kind of delightful to not have to think, and on some level. And so I wanted to go back to the inner tubes, and I forced myself to cut them randomly. Obviously, they have a certain shape. You know, you always have to contend with the circle. So I just made myself not think about it and just cut, you know, strips, whatever, you know, from the inner tubes and started to stitch them together. And, you know, I think about every aspect of, you know, construction and was, you know, even thinking like wanted to imitate the stitches that Nicholas Flobo uses. But, you know, was just trying to figure out like the right construction method. And at that time, I had access to my studio mate's industrial sewing machine. And so I tried it on there and it was like amazing. It just stitched it so well. And so I was able to work a little faster than I thought. And this is how that turned out. I call them studies in convulsion. And the funny thing is, I don't know if some of you have, you know, people that you consult with, and I often present myself with way too many options. I wanted to go back. I'm going forward. And so I just, you know, text or email random people, I mean, trusted people, I guess, and say, hey, do you like this or do you like this? And it also, I'm sure you guys know this, like, it also helps me to know what I want sometimes. And so I was trying to decide on the interior for these objects. And, you know, obviously these cords were going to be the most, you know, labor intensive solution. And that's what somebody picked. And I was like, damn, but just had to go through with it. Anyway, so yeah, so that's how these guys turned out. And I still think they're really funny. Every time I open the box and see them, they feel like, you know, a fun friend who comes over or something. And they're on display right now at Jack Fisher Gallery in San Francisco. They're hanging out kind of like this there. Whoops, sorry. And then I just wanted to keep working more that way. And I had more of the rubber. And so I thought, well, you know, maybe I can just try making a wall piece, and just, you know, worked with the random elements and stitching it together. And one of the things that I like about this is all the different connotations. It feels like a landmass. It feels like vinyl. You know, it has like a little bit of an S&M quality. And then I had a chance to do a bigger installation of it at the Monterey Museum of Art in the New Domestics exhibition that was curated by Gail Entz. That was back in 2018, I think. And so I made more of the pieces and played with a configuration that sort of, to me, felt like a what is it, continental drift. You know, these masses sort of floating apart. And the installation, the exhibition traveled, and I got to try out different configurations, and that was super fun to, you know, see it, you know, just have the ability to, you know, have a different arrangement. You get kind of bored, I guess. And then this was another one that I really liked. This was at Ruth's Table in San Francisco. Not the greatest location, but it was fun to put it up this way. It looked like it kind of grew there or something. And then most recently, I got to put it up at Root Division in a show called Weave, Bundle, Cut, and Layer, Artists with Material Instincts. And I wanted to try something really different where I put it really close together. And this is how it turned out. And this felt like the most satisfying configuration to me, actually, because it felt the most organic and sort of biological. Yeah, and then so most recently, I just had a solo show in Oakland that was called Incremental. And thank you to those of you who went and saw it. Rosie went and made the trip, not an easy trip to make. And it was work from different periods. It wasn't all like super duper brand new work. A lot of it hadn't been seen before in the Bay Area. And this was one of the pieces that I made during the pandemic. It was actually one of the things that I had around when the pandemic first started. I was not comfortable going to the studio just yet because things felt so weird and uncertain. And I had like all this denim, all these jeans that people had given me at home. And so I just thought, I'm gonna sublimate all my anxiety into figuring out the gradations of these blues. And I thought first that it was gonna be a smaller piece, but there were plenty of jeans and there was plenty of anxiety. And so it just kind of got like, it's like 6 feet long or something. And of course it was inspired by the quilts of Gee's Bend, if you guys know, if you're familiar with those, I should have included them here. But yeah, just it was very satisfying to work on this piece, and it took a while. My anxiety had eased by the time I was well into constructing it, after I figured out all the gradations. But I love seeing the different residue of the people that wore these jeans. And in fact, one friend came to the show and she's like, oh, that's mine, that's the paint color I was using. So I love that. And then this was another work in the show that was a little bit older, and this is called Pressing Instructions, which alludes to the little label here. But to backtrack a little bit, sometimes my artwork, my process helps me to take in lessons about life. And the gradation of the jeans, as well as this gradation, sort of helped me to think about, it's been such a fraught time politically, emotionally, and we want to think in black and white, and we sometimes don't think in terms of the scope, the gamut, and especially right now. And so working like this, that idea of incrementality, reminds me to take in the scope of scenarios or people or perspectives. In any case, this work is about sort of like different jobs, different roles in life. And I just use different fabrics from different found clothing to represent that. So like maybe the professor, the businessman, or some nice business slacks, the PE teacher, a fancier kind of leather skirt. So just again, trying to show a gamut of humanity. And then these were some kind of more playful, absurd works that have, that are kind of incrementally built up as well, using different kinds of bicycle tire inner tubes in different ways. So here, this was one of the early works, stitching the rubber together. But a lot of people, have a sense of binding from this work. And then this one is just the skinnier, racing tire inner tubes kind of stacked up and bound. And then I wanted to allude to some kind of interior. And so there's a few little lumps. And then this piece, this is funny. So Tobin recovered the really old cover of the table. Since you all know Cabrillo, there was that printing table in the textile area that it had this cover on there for, decades. And so Tobin finally recovered it, and he tossed the old cover in the corner, and I discovered it. And I secretly stole away with it, hoping that nobody wanted it. And when I unfolded it, I saw this and I was like, oh my God, it's a ready-made. I'm just going to make this into a piece. And anyway, this is how it turned out. And I added some screen printed elements and kind of added some fabric down here, and just kind of, some things are real and some things are fake in terms of what's going on in there, or not fake, fabricated, I should say. And the cover was really big, and I was like, I'm determined to make this entire thing into a series of paintings, which was kind of a new approach for me because I don't really think of myself as a painter, but they're sort of constructed, in a layered fashion with different materials. So here's another, and then one more, and I wanted to just talk about like different motifs that come into my work. This was a screen that I made that was from something that I'm going to point out in a little while. And then these guys, these little motifs up here. And I like to just, there was actually, I love problem solving in art, of course. And, there was like this corner missing. And so I just thought, well, I'm just going to patch it and put some colored silk behind it. And then these little motifs were from this garage vicinity map of a parking garage in San Francisco. And I just loved how they utterly reduced the buildings to these, really cool shapes. It was kind of like modern art. And so I made that into a digital file and cut these on the laser cutter at Cabrillo. And so back to this little motif down here, it's kind of a recurring thing. It was this piece of metal that I found in the desert, probably in around Death Valley or something like that. And I made this piece like a long time ago, where I just stitched it, and it's not a very good image. I took it myself before I knew better. So I stitched it, I made this little cushion, and I stitched it down right into the cushion. And someone actually bought it. And so I didn't have that piece anymore. And then here's another time that I used that motif. Of course I scanned it, I documented it. The little piece of metal, and I love that outline. So here I outlined it and made it look as though it was some kind of a map or something, or, some strange island or something like that. And then it happened one more time. So this was an idea I had like a gazillion years ago. And I was somehow, I just never got around to it. And I was determined to make it for this solo show. And so I made a stencil actually of that same funny motif and extended it. And then this is how, and it turned out like this for the solo show. I'll just show one more slide to end with. And then this was a piece in that same, and this was a brand new piece, actually made it last summer. That was made from a piece that was sort of unsuccessful. This drop cloth was kind of a bigger piece. And I was just thinking about all the choices that we're confronted with. I was using all these funny little fabrics. Whoops. And so, and this piece is called "The Data Led to No Clear Conclusion," which, felt like everything we've been experiencing lately. And also just that notion of having to make decisions and how difficult it can be. So I think that's a good place to stop. Thank you. And I will stop sharing.
Yay, thank you, Victoria.
Absolutely. Very beautiful. It's such a juxtaposition. I like that word, with how delicate your sensibility is to create something so lovely and subtle in a harsher background, it's everything is exquisitely put together. And your work, especially the rectangular pieces, are very painterly. I think you have a painter's heart. And yeah, very beautiful show. It's wonderful to see what draws you and tickles your fancy to try to see what to do with it. Yeah.
I'm hopelessly curious about materials. It's an affliction.
Lucky you. You're doing wonderful things with it.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Questions?
I like the blue piece that you were talking about, and I could see
what you were talking about, the quilts of Dee's Ben, that I got to see those when they were in the show in San Francisco. It was pretty awesome. So the affinity there between those two,
Thank
very
you.
nice.
Jane.
Hi, Vic. Thank you for showing us these pieces. They're fabulous. I love them.
Thank you.
My partner in crime here, Mary Nieder, we're sharing her screen tonight, wants to know about that rubber. Like, do you make, it's the inner tubes, I think. Do you make that shiny somehow, or does it just come like that?
Well, actually, I will admit that for the photo shoot, I put some silicone on them. Like I sort of polished them with some silicone ahead of time, but they don't always look that shiny, but they kind of, I mean, to a degree, they have an innate, you know, slick surface.
Yeah.
But they're extra shiny in that one picture.
Thank you.
It's really great to hear you talk about your work because it's enigmatic. You know, to see it without knowing your story or your approach is a puzzle. So I'm really glad that you came on board with us.
Well, I don't know if I answered any questions, but I
Well,
mean,
it gives me and yes, I don't know about answering questions, but it's an introduction. I can go in now, and appreciate with more acuity or something. Thank you. Any more questions, comments?
I'm thinking that between collecting and making, and you seem very prolific, you must have a huge storage issue. I was just curious about that. Like, how do you organize what you find? And then how do you organize and store what you've made?
well, things are pretty modular, and I don't really have, I try to use what I find, and I try not to get too much stuff. And like the denim piece, it rolls up. You know, a lot of the stuff, I actually try to think about that when I make the work. I try not to make anything that's too big, or if it's going to be big, then I'm going to make it modularly. Yeah, like, so that last piece that I showed is kind of big. It's like 44 inches tall. So that's like one of the biggest sort of things I've made, but everything has to fit in my car, right? So I usually make things to fit in my car. And I have a little bit of storage space at my studio, but I really try not to, I try not to collect too much.
I just want to say, Victoria, I've seen your work for years and always been I don't even know a word for it, in a state of inexplicable joy, looking at what you do and wondering about your brain and how you think and what takes you to those places that you go making art. So I just wanted to thank you for coming and talking, and that I got to, finally hear you talk about your work. It was extremely enjoyable. So thanks.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Beth.
Well, with that, thank you so much, Victoria. It was really wonderful to have you show your work.
Well, thanks for asking me.
Absolutely. It's been a joy.
Nice to be with these people.
So I'm going to introduce our next artist now. Wonderful presenter coming up is Aidan Valenciano, who is a sculptor. Aidan is originally from Arizona. He grew up in the midst of the astonishingly beautiful natural beauty of Mendocino. His sculptures are deeply rooted in the forms found in nature and also make reference to the synthetic or machine world we live in. Fascinated by this symbiosis, using bronze, wood, and blown glass to create hybrid sculptural forms, he refers to these as fictive organic synthetic entities, coining the term biometamorphic. His work has been widely shown and acclaimed. And he has pieces in our current show at the Power Valley Gallery in the takeaway show. He's got 3 very gorgeous pieces. So please come have a look and visit the rest of the show. So now please welcome Aidan Valenciano. I'm so proud to have you.
Okay, thank you for that introduction, and thanks for being here. I'm lucky to be here. I had a very strange experience in November where I was I was on the beach up near Año Nuevo, and a chunk of the cliff that I was standing under came down and fell on me. So I haven't been working in my studio for the last few months. I'm just starting to kind of get back in there, which feels really good. I'm going to show you, I've got lots of images, and they're roughly chronological. I kind of started I grew up in Northern California. My parents started a Waldorf school, which I went to, and that was almost all the subjects taught are sort of art, or in some way arts are kind of brought into each subject. So I was kind of steeped in arts from an early age, and I carved a lot. And then in high school, I painted a lot. And then I moved down to Santa Cruz, and I was working at the Buttery Bakery, and a friend who sadly I just learned on Facebook has passed, Claudia Cabrera. I was working with her at the Buttery, and she said, "Oh my God, you have to come up to Cabrillo and take a class with Holt Murray." And that was kind of a huge shift for me. I got totally addicted to the whole process of bronze casting. There was an amazing group of people working there at that time. This was in like 91, 92. But anyway, so some of these pieces are from that long ago. And I was thinking this quote by Henry Moore kind of inspires. I try and sort of live up to it in some way if I can. I like the idea of things being sort of somewhat self-contained, and also, and yet having sort of a deep interlock with the surrounding space around them. But I was trying to think of, like, if I boiled my process or my art statement or something down to maybe one sentence, I was thinking, I came up with, I make, therefore I am. And because I was talking with a friend, he also, Scott Trimble, who's up in Seattle right now. Well, he's been there for a while now, but and we were just talking about, like, okay, if we weren't making art, what would we be doing? It's like you just have to do it, right? I'm sure many of you have that feeling. So anyway, I'm going to show you some sort of 2 images of my work, sort of side by side with some inspiration. First, the natural world. This is Karl Blossfeld there, and then detail from a piece that I did. And again, just some natural forms. I'm really fascinated. I kind of think of nature, or sort of the evolutionary process, as sort of the most amazing of sculptors. Actually, geologically too, but more like evolutionary life forms. And like Victoria, I enjoy sort of bringing some humor into the work. I don't know if everyone sees that, but for me, there's sometimes just a joke in there just for me. But this was an early piece that I did with for Holt Murray in one of Holt Murray's classes, so that goes way back. And then it's interesting what can sort of inspire a work. That I had heard about, I forget how exactly, but about these ants. I'm very interested in fungi, and sort of looking at the world as in a macro way. But anyway, there's this ant or many different funguses that attack different insects, and they turn them into these kind of, they call them zombies. But then they have these fruiting bodies that come out of them. Often this particular ant is usually on the ground. The fungus kind of turns it into this thing that climbs up into the leaves, and then the spores come out of the fruiting body. Anyways, that's part of the inspiration for this piece here. And then I'm also really interested in connections, like how things go together, and just connecting maybe dissimilar materials. So I bronze casting, I'll show you later in the presentation how indirect the process is. It's there's many steps to go from your idea to the actual physical metal finished piece, but it's an indirect process, and I also work in wood a lot, and that's considered anyway a much more kind of direct, often thought of as a subtractive process, though I'll show you some work that's more additive later. And then, of course, like probably all artists, we look to other artists for inspiration. And some of these are sort of, referencing Chihuly here a little bit for this piece that I showed. The fluid kind of negative spaces of Henry Moore. And Marcel Duchamp. I love this little shape in the large glass there, and kind of made a life form from it. Oh, and this piece, I've always, the piece on the left is called Lunar Asparagus, and it's by Max Ernst. And I'm not sure that the piece is pretty nice, but I just liked that phrase or that title. And so I made a piece kind of thinking, what would you serve with lunar asparagus? So I thought, well, solar scampi would be a good combination with the lunar asparagus. And then what's called, I guess we call it often negative space. So I'll just do a quick little thing here. So I'm really interested in sort of framing space and shaping it. So here I'm going to show you a more detailed sort of rundown of like how a piece might start and all the way through to the actual finished work. This again is the same piece that I just ended there with. So an early sketch, roughing out the wood and some of the wax work starting. And then I wanted to be able to, Victoria was talking about modularity and space. And I think one of the difficult things that sculptors often have is, where do you put these things if they're not modular? So anyway, I thought if that piece would be kind of insane to have all of those glass pieces permanently attached. So I tried to figure out a system where they could be temporary, or I could take the glass out, pack the glass separately. So anyway, I came up with a system of magnets to hold the glass in place. And a roughing out kind of the aesthetic. My pieces, I've often been working in the past anyway, my more recent work is pretty different. But the idea of sort of a minimum amount of points that need to set down that would sort of support a form. And those I liked the idea of a tripod. And so there's often building these creatures or these larger pieces, sort of a compromise between the aesthetically what I'm hoping will happen, and then physically like the engineering of it or making it actually stand up. And there's sort of often a compromise or a back and forth between those two things. This is another piece, just some early inspiration for it. I think actually, funnily enough, I think Victoria might have given me one of these. They're called Devil's Claws. I actually was able to grow some last year from some seeds that I got from a friend in Tucson. This is the green plant, and then some of the other inspirations for this piece are sort of the Art Deco or Art Nouveau iron work. But these are these Devil's Claw pods. And here's a sketch for a wall piece. And that's the wood, and then there's some inlaid glass, sort of starting the wax work, finished piece, some detail. And then again, this also is another piece I'll just run through, sort of these organic shapes that I like to reference. As simple as even just the elegance of a kind of just an almond or a peach or some kind of fruit just split open. And I love to forage for wild mushrooms. Sadly, that's been difficult to do in the last decade because we've had so little rain. But this piece was in a show quite a while ago now, up at Cabrillo, a group show there. And then one of the other things that I guess is a big part of what I'm interested in making objects is the idea of a compound curve, which is a curve that passes through multiple axes. This is an early sketch for a piece. This is the small scale piece, maybe about 3 feet tall, or maybe 2 feet tall. And I wasn't very happy with this. I liked elements of it. So I wanted to kind of revisit this idea, and I decided to go much bigger scale with it. This is the wood, rough wood, and some of the bronze parts. Again, roughing out here, things are starting to come together. And some of the references, I like the idea. People often ask me, are you into science fiction, and or is science fiction a big inspiration for your work? And I do like science fiction, but I don't really think of it as a big inspiration for my work. I think of the looking closely at things and then also combining things in sort of a hybrid creature, then makes it sort of alien. So this piece I think of as sort of a mosquito, hummingbird, elephant piece. Little bit of I love this. This is a detail from a Dali painting, I think The Temptation of St. Anthony or something. But this is the piece here. And then this is a piece I worked on for a show up at Filoli Gardens quite a while ago, but it actually shows the whole process of casting and everything. So some ferns. This is actually a shark's egg. Some chrysalis. So this is the piece mocked. The wax is mocked up on the wall there. Some of the parts I worked in clay, took a mold to cast the waxes. I love textures and sort of the contrast between texture and smooth. So I use that a lot in bronze. This is a different piece, but I just wanted to show the kind of extensive amount of additive parts that have to go on to a wax to be able to actually cast it in bronze. I didn't have a picture of my actual piece. So anyway, then they're invested in a sand and plaster slurry, and that sets up, and they go into a kiln, the waxes burn out, and then metal gets poured into the empty space. And here the piece is just broken out. Some more forms. You can see the residue still on there. These are power washed. All the different parts that are going to make up that final piece. And then this is one of them growing. And that's the finished piece. And then I also, it's kind of funny because I have a lot of different things. I said this was sort of chronological, but I often have a bunch of different things going on. And one of the things that I really enjoy doing is kind of just going out into nature and sort of finding very much inspired by Andy Goldsworthy and his work and just arranging things. So anyway, this is a piece that I did up at Waddell Creek, probably, I can't remember how long ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago. There were some, well, maybe even more than that, because it was pretty stormy, so a lot of driftwood came down. This is actually near Año Nuevo as well. Sometimes the beaches, the sand washes out and they're just covered in these amazing stones, and there happened to be a clay cliff there, and I just started inlaying them into the clay. And then this is up on Mount Shasta. I was hiking with my dad. My dad lived in Mount Shasta, and just about every summer I would visit. And one of the hikes, we were coming back and I saw all of this flat slate-like rock and thought, oh, I'm going to try building one of Andy Goldsworthy's cairns. So that was that. And there's my dad, who sadly has passed in the midst of the pandemic, not due to COVID, but and then I also have really enjoyed, I'd love to get back into ceramics. I've done a little bit, and I would love to explore that further, but this is some work in ceramics. I used clay a lot when I was casting a lot of bronze as a medium to take a mold of. You can work pretty quickly in clay to sculpt a form and then take a mold, but then it was really satisfying to actually make the clay the finished work. And these are these little sort of sliding boxes based on an assignment to create, I think they're called in-row. They're little sliding boxes that the samurai used to wear. And then more recently, I haven't had access to bronze, which is a very expensive material. I've often had access through either work or a cooperative studio that I was in part of on the west side for a while. But so these pieces are actually, I'd say probably one of the first pieces or series that I sort of started based on a big part of it was economics, because I was doing open studios for the first time in many years, and I made this piece, and the first person into my studio and the first sale I had was this piece. I was like, whoa, that was, it's already gone, and maybe I'll explore this a bit more. And anyway, so it kind of got a little more, started out very kind of, I would think, almost a little bit Zen, and then it got a little more complex. And actually, these have been the best. This was interesting to start working on the wall too, which I've done a little bit of before, but they came into the space quite a bit. And this was sort of interesting to try and work as close to the wall as possible, but still make it be a sculpture, and let it somehow come into the room. And these are all found materials. So this is a process of finding an old tool, and then the kind of indirect, these S-curve shapes are created by slicing or cutting up actual tool handles, and then doweling and gluing them all together to create these curves, and then finally ending up in a actual branch. And then I use copper and epoxy and some patina work from my bronze experience to do the flowers, and then wood carving for the fruit. This piece is currently I made as part of there was a really interesting show in Walnut Creek. It was called If a Tree Falls, the art of the boundary oak, I think is what it's called. And this huge oak tree fell in a storm in 2019, and there was a call, an art call for you could go and pick up wood from this tree. And anyway, and then about 6 or 7 months later, you submitted work that was made with some of the wood from that tree. And it varied, it was everything from painting to huge, massive sculptures. And this was my solution of the oak from the tree was just the acorns and the leaves. And this one actually is earlier than most of these. But then I started, this is a real recent piece. I started to put these together. I started to notice I'd have them at a show or something. And even though I'm using very good glue, sometimes the joint would fail. The dowel would stay in, but it could rotate a little bit. So I started pinning on the back sides of these. I would go in and counter drill a pin into the dowel, the cross dowel. And I loved the way that looked. So I made this piece kind of inspired by this idea of these kind of like dowels counterpinning the other interior dowel. And then that's pretty much it. I just started working in concrete. Was thinking of Holt Murray and his terrazzo work. And I had collected all of these on the beaches, all of these beach agates, and some have really interesting patterns. Most of them are just, not that interesting, but I wanted to try and find something to do with these. And so I've started working in some concrete. This is white concrete with a bunch of these agates embedded and then polished. And actually this is in that same show, If a Tree Falls, because the oak wood there is from that tree. And then this piece is just kind of like a little basin. Actually, this is at the Pajaro Arts right now, but it's got me thinking. I'm looking forward to being strong enough and being able to get back in the studio and do some larger scale concrete, probably hollow forms, really contrasting the idea of polish and heavy texture. So that's it.
Wow, bravo.
I can't see my.
So you go to the
Oh, there
top.
we go.
Yeah, there you go. To
Yeah,
the
I
top.
couldn't see my cursor for some reason.
Ah,
Did I stop sharing?
no, you're still sharing, but so go
Okay,
to the
stop.
stop. Yeah,
There we go.
there you are.
Wow,
All right.
Great job.
Thanks.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
that was wonderful. My goodness. You have such a sensitive feel for the natural things, that it's exquisite with the intricate little movements of the feet and legs of your critters, and
Yeah.
using bronze and for such a delicate hold up.
Right.
It's like I can picture you as a little boy playing with insects. you know,
Yeah.
And learning exactly how they worked,
Yeah.
how they got around. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was something that I read as part of my graduate studies at San Jose State. One of the teachers there introduced me to Christopher Alexander, who's a really interesting, I would call him a theoretical architect. He hasn't really made that many buildings, and the buildings that he has made, I don't find very interesting, but some of the concepts he had about design and the natural world really stuck with me. And one of them was this idea of deep interlock, which is kind of like a pathway that's very indirect. Is sort of the deep interlock is something like this, where you have, even that's just a deep interlock with space and form, as opposed to that where there's not as much sort of interaction between space and the form itself. So I like this idea of things going through, and the legs sort of allow me to play with that open space.
The pieces are very friendly.
Oh, thanks.
They're really,
Some people are frightened, but most people aren't. And I don't intend them to be scary. They're sort of, again, sometimes I made up all these sort of fake or faux taxonomic names for a lot of my earlier work.
very humorous.
And a lot of those are sort of silly, funny little jokes for me.
Yeah. Very nice.
I'll just add that there's so much love, in how you make them, that it kind of balances out any scariness. I like that tension, though. Do you know what I mean? Like they're a little, there's that sci-fi element.
Yeah.
But then the craft is just like, mind blowing. And so, there's a wonderful balance with that.
Yeah, I'd like them to be, I mean, I like the idea of them being alien in some way, but being friendly in the sense that they're approachable. But although I did have one experience, I think it was at my, I think it was a thesis show at San Jose State, and one woman looked in, and she looked around and just ran. So some people are scared, but most people are not.
Well, it's great to see your inspiration as well as the process.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not sure if people can really get a sense that some of these are actually pretty tall, like.
Oh yeah,
long
yeah. I
stuff.
should have. I had dimensions in a lot of them, but even reading the dimensions is difficult to then. Some of them are roughly. I think I've gone close to 6 feet, almost 7 feet on some of them. And I forgot to mention, again, going back to modularity and storage and shipping and things like that, all of those, what look like hinges on a lot of those pieces, actually come apart. And so all the legs sort of break down and come off the piece. All the glass comes out, and they can be stored in a small space and shipped or transported easily.
Wonderful.
So like Victoria, thinking ahead, what's gonna happen with this stuff?
Put them in the garden.
Yeah.
I would love to see them, some of them on the scale of Louise Bourgeois' spider.
I know, yeah, that would be fun, huh?
Be so cool. They're beautiful.
No, thank you. Yeah. Someday, maybe, if I live long enough. If I keep away from cliff sides.
Yes. Hunting for more materials, probably for your work, huh?
Yeah, right.
That day.
Actually, yeah, I was visiting that particular beach because I was looking, someone had told me at Open Studios that it was a really good beach for finding fossils. And it is a good beach for finding fossils.
And the cliff table. Well, thank you so much. That was
Thank you.
Really great to see all of those pieces and how vast and perfectly put things together too.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And,
Aidan. Beautiful.
Oh, thanks, Hedwig.
And now we are very lucky to introduce Kathleen Crocetti. Wait a second here. You can find her. Kathleen is a multimedia artist with both private and a very public art practice. In her studio, she explores a long-standing fascination with color and light, creating light-infused sculptures, wall pieces, and even wearable garments that tell a personal narrative. Putting to good use the tile-making skills she learned when on a fellowship in Morocco, Kathleen has designed, organized, and facilitated numerous community mosaic art projects to beautify walls and bridges throughout our county. In Watsonville, we're truly blessed with monumental mosaic walls on many surfaces of the downtown Civic Center garage, telling stories of the many cultural backgrounds of our local fellow citizens. And I think Kathleen will tell us a lot about that. Thank you, Kathleen.
You're muted.
Unmuted. Thank
There
you. Here we go. All right. I think you're seeing my slideshow.
Yeah.
All right. So Watsonville Brillante is my big current project. I was actually in the very first salon that PVA did, and I did an extensive history of my work. So I'm going to focus on just the last 2.5 years. This is a process that I learned in 2018, where carving foam, covering with fiberglass, and then covering with cement, and then putting mosaics on it. And I'm showing that process piece because I've been doing quite a bit of that lately. This is a bench in front of Mission Hill Middle School. There are 3 of them that were done by myself, mostly my students, which was kind of an interesting situation to have kids cover in fiberglass and then cement in the classroom and not totally destroy the classroom with cement and kids. But on the right, those smaller insets are then the students planning out the tesserae for how they'll apply what they'll be applying to the benches. We had 120 kids submit designs, and then the school voted which designs we would use. We moved the benches outdoors. And then it started raining. So anyway, this is us working outside on those benches. And here they are. The school was undergoing a renovation. And so the construction crew ended up setting them in for us. And so that you can see transportation and assistance, which ends up happening when you do big projects. So I was a Rydell Fellow in 2015, and I traveled to Spain and Morocco and was particularly inspired by the massiveness of some of the things that I saw there. So on the left is a major mosque in Casablanca, and on the right is Gaudi's Parc Güell. And I loved it's several times he has these really organic shapes that then he covers with mosaics. And I came away from that trip deciding that I wanted to do a monumental piece. And so just thinking about all the work that I have been doing in community with community, if you added them all up, I would already have a massive monumental piece, but they're all spread out. So I started dreaming, and I spent 1.5 years writing and researching what I wanted to do. So this is a black and white photo from the parking garage at the corner of 2nd and Rodriguez. And up there in the top left corner, you can see I've photoshopped in maybe a little bit of mosaics, but I ended up selling this project to the city. You know, it's an idea. I want to do it. Will you support me? The support I asked it for from the city was a place to do the work And would they pressure wash the building before I put it up? So that's the extent of the investment that I asked for from the city. When I went to ask them, I already had several investors lined up. I had help. I had a lot of help in the design of the white paper to make this project possible. And we came up with a budget that over a period of 5 years, it'd be $1.5 million. So when I went to the city with my proposal, I already had 700,000 in materials and labor, and then 300,000 in cash. And we've raised the rest since then. But when the city saw this, and then it went to the Arts Commission and the City Council and they approved it, I was very excited. This is part of our plan. So the garage is going to be 12,500 square feet of mosaics to cover the whole thing. And based on my previous work with community, I figure I could do 1,200 a month. So that's how it became a 5-year project. And each of these phases, so phase 1, 2, and 3, represent 1,200 square feet of mosaics that we're going to fabricate and then put up. So there's the order of the phases has changed. Phase 1 did happen first, phase 2 did happen second, but phase 3 is now going to be phase 10. Phase 5 and 6 became phase 3 and 4, and I'll be showing you pictures of how it ended up. And we are currently working on what's currently says phase 8 is phase 5. So we're doing all the verticals first, but once the city approved the piece, there was a story in the paper, and Tarmo Hanula asked us to go to the garage and pose. This is my best buddy, Suzanne, who helps me with everything I do. She's a lead estimator and project engineer for Rinaldi Tile and Marble. So she knows numbers, like how to figure out how much tile I'm going to use. And anyway, this picture was on the front page of the paper. And I looked at the picture and I thought, oh my God, what have I signed myself up for? It's too much. But I'd already signed up for it and I knew I could do it. So we went forward. But starting with that picture was the first time I had tension. I started holding a lot of tension in my body about the project, which is really kind of funny. After 2.5 years of planning, that's the thing that freaked me out. So for the garage has vertical sections and horizontal sections, as you can see. And here again, the verticals and the horizontals. So we're starting with the verticals, which are all going to be images by Juan Fuentes. And Juan graduated from Watsonville High School in 1969. He's one of 11 kids. He is the first in his family to go to college. He went to San Francisco State. He's amazing, and I love his work. I was introduced to him through Pajaro Valley Arts. He's had his work in several of their shows, but I met him at Hablamos Juntos, and he was thrilled. He didn't know if I was going to be able to do this or not, but he talked to Judy, and Judy said, she said she's going to do it. It's going to happen. So thank you, Judy. Anyway, we took Juan's images to the community and gave them choices, like vote, which of Juan's images do you want? And the first one they chose was the strawberry picker. So this is my husband, Bill, and I getting ready to start. The city gave us an empty building. They were renting it from them for $1 a year for 5 years. We signed a lease. It's quite nice. It's a community center. And this particular community center, they hadn't used in 12 years when we got it. They just simply didn't have the funds for programming. So they're getting this monumental mosaic and a free after-school arts program for teenagers for $1 a year. I think it's a pretty good deal. But anyway, this is Bill and I. I think we went to Sacramento and bought all these shelves at a really good price. And then this is me driving the Rinaldi truck. And I went out to Fire Clay, which is one of our donors. They're giving us all their tile. So I was driving Rinaldi's truck over to the Fire Clay yard to get tiles, and we loaded them all into the Museo, which is now the Museo Mosaic Art Center. This is my husband, Bill, on the left. He designed our work tables. And then on the right, the Watsonville Rotary came and helped us build our 6 work tables. Our first project wasn't actually for the parking garage. It was for the library because we have to get permission from the Public Arts Commission, and they hadn't approved our image yet, but we did have this library project. On the left, those are librarians who came to help make the mosaics. And on the right, it's being fabricated. And here it is. The wonderful photographs are all my very best photographs have been taken by Mr. Jones, Mr. R.R. Jones. So there you go. This is really exciting because the carpet in front of that elevator was lifting. You could trip on it. It had stains on it. It was a mess. And so the librarians got a quote or a bid for what would it cost to put tiles right there. And regular ugly tiles was only $2,000 less than what we did. I have to rethink my pricing structure, but it was easy sell for them to do a mosaic instead of a just plain old tile floor. This was our like how we started. These 2 little girls that we met 2.5 years ago still come, and we see them on Sundays. This is my friend Ann Kavanaugh there, learning how to cut tile as well. On the left, this is my board of directors, and in the middle is Juan Fuentes. So in order to do this project with this massive budget, I started a nonprofit organization. It's called Community Arts and Empowerment. So we make public art for, by, and with the community. And on the right is Brianna. So Brianna was working part-time at PVA, and PVA was worried because they couldn't hire her full-time, that she wouldn't stay for very long because it's hard to make a living as a part-time employee. So we share her. She works part-time for me and part-time for PVA. It's very nice. So this is the bottom half of the strawberry picker. On the far right, you can see a little strawberry. These are based on Juan Fuentes wood cuts. So, to make the strawberry, he just cut out these lines, and we just follow his lines. So on the left, you'll see what we have is a piece of paper that is a print of Juan's work, and we're just cutting tile and putting them on top of his drawing. And then on the right, these are some of my volunteers that are coming still. The woman in the black with the square collar, her name's Jovita. I met her at Farmers Market 3 years ago, and she comes every week. It's really, really nice to meet community and to make connections and have people return over and over again. So this was the fall of 2019 when we were working on our very first one, the strawberry picker. And the high school kids have to do community service credit hours in order to graduate. And we had lots and lots of them. Our first fall, over 360 something hours were put in by teenagers. And that was pre-COVID, and it was our first opening, and it just kept going. It's just amazing. Behind those kids on the floor, you can see a stack of mosaics starting to happen. And so we built this image, the strawberry picker, on 4x8 pieces of plywood. And after we had 54 pieces of plywood, we knew we were ready to go because it took 54 boards to make this happen. So there's the wall beforehand. I called up a company and had the scaffolding erected in March of 2020, and then everything stopped. And so the scaffolding stayed up for 6 weeks with nothing going on. Finally, we were given the go-ahead because construction was still allowed. So this is a Rinaldi truck again, and these are our 54 boards that are going to make the strawberry picker. We transferred them to the garage, and then Rinaldi's crew started to install them. So myself and the youth, we don't do the installation, we just do the fabrication. And so on the right, you can see it has started to go up. This is like a week later, we're on the top floor. You can see the view of Watsonville, but he's holding up a piece of the mosaic, which he'll then just slap against the wall. So he's put thin set on the wall, and then the tiles go right up. And then on the right, it's the view of the mosaic through the scrim of the scaffolding. And then this is the day it came down. We were so super excited. That's me and Brianna on the left, and that's the finished piece. That's 6 months worth of work, 1,200 square feet, only 9 more phases to go. So we were pretty excited. And for myself, that picture that showed me where I showed you I had tension, this is the day 6 months later when like, whew, okay, I can do this. It's going to happen. And it was amazing how much tension just like floated off my body that day, because I had never done anything this big before. Like this was a leap. But we didn't have our next image approved. So we had a side project, just like the library was a side project. This was our next side project. And we did this one also in partnership with PVA and the city of Watsonville through a grant that Judy wrote from the California Arts Project. The image, we did a competition. We're going to fill that upper space on the right with an image. We had the community submit images, and Jaime Sanchez, his was the image that won. So then we set about fabricating it in tile. And here we are getting ready to install it. And there it is at Ramsey Park. And it's really nice to stand on the inside of that alcove and have the light shine through. And the name of this piece is Community is the Heart. So it's a community of birds flocking together in the shape of a heart. So the apple picker was the next image that the community had voted on, and a vote, like more than 56% of the people wanted the apple picker next. And this is an image just showing you sort of the scale. It's me nailing on it, but we print out the whole thing. And then we cut it into pieces that will fit on the board. But before we do that, we have to mark the expansion joints, because we never put tile across an expansion joint where the concrete's going to be. So under my ankle, you can see those 2 lines, and that's an expansion joint. So we take careful measurements of the wall first, and then we come and mark up the paper, and then we cut it a piece. On the left, this is like my map, and it just, we number the boards. So you can see on the right where it says AA with a little arrow and up, and then on the left where it says AA, this is the map for how the tile company will actually, Rinaldi's folks will get to install it. So that was the summer. COVID had started already. We were pretty much closed, but the state decided that kids could go to summer camp. So we had a community service summer camp for youth, and 8 kids came every day. Well, they came Monday through Thursday from 3 to 7, and they worked on this mosaic so for the summer. And I was feeling really guilty, like, oh my gosh, these kids are just slaving away for us every day. Let's have it be more fun. So Monday through Wednesday, they worked on the big mosaic, and Thursdays, I taught them different mosaic techniques, and each of them took home 4 to 6 of their own personal mosaics in different styles with different materials. We also had, I think there were 8 adults who would come in. We only allowed 4 people in at a time because of COVID, and they were finishing up around the students. So there were 16 folks in all who finished fabricating the apple picker in 6 months. So the strawberry picker, there were 184 people who helped, and the apple picker, there were 16, but we finished both of them in 6 months. So it's a real testament to the dedication of those 16 folks that we got the apple picker done on time despite COVID. Well, within our projected time frame. There's not really you have to get it done at this time, except that our 5-year lease will run out. We want to get it done before then. So this is one of my favorite pictures. Those are 6 of the 8 youth. And then the picture on the right, I love this because they are really in awe of what they accomplished, and they're just standing there talking and laughing about it. Another in between project. So yeah, I've got the Museo going, but I also still have my own studio. And that summer I worked on the dragon. So here is like this big cardboard drawing in front of my garage. And in front of my cardboard drawing of the dragon is the form that Tom Ralston is going to use to pour the arch that the dragon will sit on top of. And then on the right is the steel armature that's going to be on the inside of the dragon. And of course, you can't just make a dragon and think it'll sit on top of the arch. You have to plan these things, like it has to fit. So I had to make 2 armatures so that when Tom cast his arch, he would have had a jig to make sure that my dragon would fit on top of the arch. So here's on the left, there's the armature being fitted into the foam. And on the right, you can see there's 2 pieces of foam and the armature's in the middle. The foam is glued together. That green plastic wrap is sort of like my clamping system to hold it together while it's being glued. And in the back, you can see one of the humps has already been glued together and it's up there. And now it's looking sort of like a Lego dragon because it's all blocky. The next step is to create the form. So I have these series just so you can see, like on the left, it's the Lego block with like a paper pattern on top. And then on the right, it's like there's the drawing of the paper pattern. The lower left, I've cut out the voids. And then on the right, I've started to shape the form. And on the final on the right, you can see what the tail end of that dragon, the shape it kind of finally came out to. So here on the dragon, on the left is the dragon in foam. There, it's just about ready. And on the left, is the foam, but on the right, it's the foam with fiberglass tape over it. So you put the fiberglass tape on, and then fiberglass, and then cement. And so this is the other side of my studio where the dragon has been, it's finally ready. The cement and the fiberglass has been attached. That's what you're seeing on the left. And on the right, I'm just testing out tiles, like how big does the breastplate going to be? Have I got? So I'm actually at this point, what I'm looking at there is the width of that red stripe. How much separation do I want between like those round forms that create the breastplate of a dragon? And then on the left, the dragon is being supported by straps because it's upright and there's no support for it. And I don't want an earthquake to happen and it fall over, but we're slowly but surely applying the tesserae to the form. And then on the right is the tail. So when the dragon was finished, we got a crane and we lifted the 4 parts up into the air and dropped it on top of Tom's arch. So there's the dragon. That was a side project while we're still working on Watsonville Brillante. So the apple picker and the strawberry picker were both 20 feet across, and they were each 1,200 square feet. Hermanita was next, and she's going on a larger wall. Hermanita's 40 feet across by 60 feet tall. And in this case, I had to use the gem to lay out the picture. So on the left, you're seeing Juan's, an original woodblock print from Juan Fuentes. And on the right, it's my having put it in Photoshop, blown it up, put it through my printer, taped it all together. And then that's Bill and I finding out, like using a blue chalk line to mark where the expansion joints are on the garage. COVID's still happening. Not very many people supposed to be in our space at one time, but we still want to be out in community because empowering the community is part of our mission. So we built this mobile mosaic making studio. It's really cool. The drawers pull out and there's tools on the inside. Those little white handles pull out and it's like a like a cutting board, like a work surface. And the very top is where we put the mosaics. And so on the right, you're seeing folks at the Watsonville Farmers Market working on our mosaics. Some more kids at Farmers Market and some city staff at Farmers Market working on this. They're working on Amanita at this point. So we get all kinds of folks. Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday are for youth only from 3 to 7:30. Those are our high school kids. But Wednesday nights are for groups. So if you work, we've had many work parties. So people who work together or who've been working remote and they're going to come back together, they have come and hung out with us for an evening. We've taught them how to make mosaics, and then they get reacquainted with each other by, it's sort of like a quilting bee. You're just making a puzzle and talking to each other. It doesn't take that much concentration. And it's been a great way for people to reintegrate to being together. And this is a human health services group that came and helped. And you could see the spiral on the table. It's part of Amanita's, what's above her head. I love this one on the left for the scale. Like this is one of the sections and I'm like sitting on it. And then next to me is one of the Rinaldi guys. So they can't put up something this big all at once. They themselves have to sort of do a mosaic too. And they cut what we've done along parting lines that make sense so that they can install it. And then I do get up on the scaffolding and inspect and fix. Rinaldi's guys, they're amazing. They're really great, but they're not usually installing mosaics. They're usually installing like regular 4x4 tiles or tiles that are 4 feet by 6 feet. And so there's tolerance issues in my work that's a little bit different than theirs. And so we get up on the scaffolding and spend 2 to 3 weeks just going over 1 inch at a time, because after the scaffolding comes down, that's it. It can never be fixed again. So we get it just right before the scaffolding comes down. And there she is. The scaffolding is coming down. It was a pretty exciting day, October 1st of this year. So Amanita took us a year. We did the left side in the spring and the right side in the summer, fall. And there she is. So my next side project is a memorial bench for Allison Endert. And it was commissioned by Ryan Coonerty. And she was really into humpback whales. And she left behind kids. So we designed this piece where anyway, you'll see what it's going to come out to be. But on the left is blocking, like the Lego blocks. And on the right, I'm starting to shape. Here it's getting that fiberglass tape. On the left, the PVC pipe is for drainage, because you don't want, when you sit, you want your bum to be lower than your knees. And so a bench will have a slope, and you don't want water to catch or stay in the back, because then your tiles will get dirty and they'll get scungy looking. So there's a drainage hole right there. And then on the right, it's already been fiberglassed and cemented, and it's ready to receive the tesserae. So on the left, part of this bench is flat. So we were able to do it flat on the table. But then on the right, you can see that part of the bench is going to be sculpted, have some 3-dimensional form. So we have to place those tesserae one piece at a time rather than flat like on the table we've got on the left. So the image that you're seeing, you're going to see the finished one in just a second. It's a mother whale, a mother humpback at the moment of first breath for that baby, because humpback whales, they have to hold that calf up above into the air to show them how to breathe, that they're going to have to go up to breathe. And so this is what the mothers do. They hold that calf up by putting their own chin under the baby's chin. Well, chin, I don't know what you would call that part, but there we go. So this is the backside of the bench in place at Twin Lakes State Park Beach. And then this is the front side that's sculpted. And that was just installed a couple months ago. So we're currently working on the last vertical, and we have to get ready because it's a process for the City Arts Commission to approve images. So we have a call for entry for the horizontals. I never wanted this piece to be my artwork. This is why Juan's pieces are the verticals, and the horizontals are going to represent the heritage, the cultural heritages, people who moved to Watsonville. And so we put a call for artists. My slides seem to be out of order, but I'll just keep going. So this is the next vertical. She's an Asian flower grower, and she's a little bit smaller than the other two. So this next phase will include the vertical and the horizontals to the left, which will be in color. We had 390 entries. We approved 120. We paid each of those artists a stipend for their work, and some of them have, as you can see, started to have been fabricated. So these were, of the 125 we accepted, 105 of them were by youth. And so like, if you look at this red line here, that's not quite straight. We didn't fix them up. This is how it was submitted by the youth, and that's how we're gonna put it up. I'm excited. I'm hopeful that there's gonna be like more whimsy and fun to it because of just letting it go, letting it be. So this is the plan that the City Arts Commission approved of what the Second Street wall will look like. We're putting the cultural heritages in the order in which people arrived in Watsonville. So here on the left, this is the Ohlone or the Amamutsin, and then all of these are tribes, Native American people coming on up over here. And then when we get to the top, this is Spain. And then the Braceros came from Baja California. And then right at the top, that dragon, that food dragon, is for the Chinese who were next. And then coming across the top, Japanese, Irish, Portuguese, African Americans, Dutch, and so on. We have a very nice presentation, which you can view if you come to the studio. These are up and they're labeled. It's quite nice. So, oh, here we go. This is a picture in the studio. You could see the whole thing up on the wall. You can see the labels up there behind us. This is my favorite part, like teaching. And so these are two high school youth learning how to cut tiles in order to place them on the flower grower image. This is another group that was like getting back together after COVID, was in between Delta and Omicron. But these are Fireclay employees working on one of the colored pieces. This is going to be phase 10. What's exciting to me about phase 10 is over here on the right, between the apple grower and the strawberry picker, all these are images from the Middle East. So our most recent immigrants are from the Middle East. We have Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Yemen, Morocco. So it's really fun to see those images come through. Anyway, that will be phase 10, which is 2.5 years from now. The blanks at the bottom, it's kind of exciting. The Arts Commission let me have blanks. I asked for blanks because we are representing every single state of Mexico, but for the whole continent of Africa, we only have one. And so I'm hoping that as things go up and people hear about this, they'll say to me, hey, how about the Congo? How about South Africa? You know, how about Rwanda? Wherever they're from. If somebody pipes up and says, I'm in Watsonville, this is where I'm from, can you represent us? Then we have space to do so. This is one of our parties, and it's the Community Foundation who's been really instrumental in helping us get funding for our project. And then, so how to get involved. We have a Mosaic Arts Center, and we're also out in the public. It's free and it's drop in. We offer a safe space to create art and be in community while you do so. I'm very excited that we have enough funding to hire interns. We have 3 currently, but we have funding for 5. The qualifications for our interns is they have to be high school youth, at least 16 years old. They'll need to put in 12 hours of community service with us first to make sure it's a good fit. Like if they don't like mosaics, then there's no point in hiring them. So we make sure that they like what they're doing, and then we can start to pay them. It's very exciting. These are our hours. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, 3 to 7:30 for youth only, and Sundays 12 to 2 for adults and people of all ages. And then we can also do Wednesday nights if you call and you want to bring a group in. Oh, and no surprise, we made our own mosaic sign for our center. This makes me super happy to see this going on. On the left, it's the mayor's bike ride. And on the right, it's Casa Batlló in Spain. And I just love like the color and the interaction and the community happening. Casa Batlló was one of my inspirations. So there you go. I continue to do work in my studio. This is some of my most recent stuff. And this is one of my next commissions. We got the commission, but we haven't started because we haven't signed a contract yet, but we're doing a COVID memorial for the city of Watsonville. And then this is, you can't do public art without putting proposals out there. So this is a proposal we have out there. We'll see if it happens. We want to open a satellite office in Santa Cruz, and we would start by doing the 418's new building. That's it.
Wow. Are you not tired?
No.
Ever? Are you ever tired? Do you sleep?
Thanks. I am still working 80% at Mission Hill. So I go to teach school. Really excited. I've asked for a reduction. Next year, maybe I'll only work 60%. But yeah, I'm almost done teaching, but I'm not done with teenagers, which is why I have my art center.
That's great.
Well, you have incredible energy and vision and ability to create this kind of project. Very, very wonderful to see the whole process and how gorgeous it is in person. It's so wonderful to just walk over there and see, to be in the presence of those monumental, beautiful, beautiful tile works. Just, yeah. Thank you for all you
Thank
do.
you.
It's huge. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Come visit me, somebody,
Yes.
anybody.
Mhm. Any questions for Kathleen? Maybe?
Kathleen?
Yes.
Okay. So you obviously have many inspirations and you're very driven by the community. But what made this project so important to you? I mean, this is a huge commitment of time and resources.
So I don't know how many of you know this, but I am an Army brat. I've never lived in one place longer than I have now. I've been 20 years here in this house in Watsonville. And when I moved to California, I decided I wasn't ever going to move again because I needed community. I never had community, just moved too much. And then I live in Watsonville, but I've been going to Santa Cruz every day and working so hard that I haven't really made community here in Watsonville. And this is where I want to be when I retire. This is where I want to spend my time. And Rebecca Garcia, she asked me, she said, do you really feel like you represent Watsonville, that you know Watsonville? And I said, actually, no, not yet. That's why I want to do this. I need to meet my community. I really, I feel like I did so much work in Santa Cruz. Like I can't go anywhere in Santa Cruz without people knowing who I am and what I do and being excited to see me. And in Watsonville, I've been anonymous. And I wanted to make Watsonville the Barcelona of the West Coast. Like that's just, I want Watsonville to be a mosaic destination. And I can't do that by myself, right? So I have to teach others so that they can flourish and go on and make their own mosaics too. It's really exciting the number of students that I've taught who have developed a passion for mosaics and are doing it too. And like, I feel like I've left Santa Cruz in good hands. Like Denise Davidson is doing beautiful public artwork up there. And yeah, I don't know. This is home. This is where I want to be. And so I'm going to decorate my home.
Another question?
Yes.
I don't want to hog the time, but you obviously have a support system in your husband, and but you're not an engineer, right? I mean, how did you learn all this stuff?
So I know I have an engineer's mind. When I was in high school and I was trying to decide which way to go, you're going to love this story. It's really horrible. I was like, am I going to be a scientist or I'm going to be an artist? I couldn't decide. And my dad and I had really poor communication. And he says, you should be an engineer. And I had never heard the term engineer. I just rolled my eyes. It's like, oh my God, does he really think I want to drive trains? Well, I didn't ask and he didn't explain. And so I thought he just really didn't get me, that he just really didn't know me. Like, but he wanted me to be like an engineer, and I probably could have been. But as far as like, so training, starting small, right? And working incrementally and working modular. Like, so the mosaic project at Watsonville is really just growing what I already knew how to do. But Suzanne Brubeck, who is my partner in crime, before I met her, I lost money on every public art project I ever did. They were basically all like gifts because I kept losing money. Well, I hired Suzanne, became my teammate. And this is what she does for a living, is she measures and she prices and she bids billion-dollar projects. And so my projects are small, but she measures and she adds up and she bids so that we can make a small sum of money per square foot, but we're not paying out of our pockets to make the work anymore. So Suzanne was my budget person, but Bill, my husband, the engineer, he's the guy who measures. Like, he drives me crazy how long it takes to measure, but the mosaics fit. So I guess I can spend 6 hours with him and the tape measure and arguing and the computer and like putting in the numbers and going over it again and again until we're both satisfied. But yeah, Bill and Suzanne and me. And then when I do bigger projects like the Dragon, I hire, so Andy Radovan is a structural engineer in Santa Cruz, and I paid him like, hey, this is what I figured out I want to do for my armature. Is this going to work? Do I have enough support in here? And like, he checks my numbers and he looks and he goes to his books and looks at wind shear and all that stuff and says, yep, you're good, which is really exciting. I don't pay Andy as much as I might because I come to him with like what I've thought would be the right way to do it. Like, I come with the drawings and I say, is this right? What should I adjust? And he hasn't been adjusting. He's been saying, yeah, you've actually over-engineered. I'm like, thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good questions.
Wow. Well, what an inspiration.
Thanks, Rosie.
Do you have your hand up, Mary Nita or Jane? Jane?
Oh,
Roberta?
Tony does.
Tony, where's Tony?
I have to unmute myself. I would like to know where the dragon is installed. He is absolutely wonderful.
He's even better in person. And actually, you're going to love this. So that dragon was commissioned by George Au, and George was unhappy with me that I was calling it a he. And I said, well, George, the whole story of Chinatown is that Chinese women weren't allowed to immigrate. So Chinatown was full of all these men. Like you as a child had 30 uncles. It seemed to me it should be a dragon for the uncles. And George Au, who's like in his late 70s, he said, he's totally a modern man. He was like, no, Kathleen, the dragon is for everyone. The dragon is gender neutral. The dragon should be called they or them. I was like, yes,
Oh, no.
fantastic. Fantastic.
Very nice.
So there we go. The dragon is gender neutral. If you park in the Trader Joe's parking lot and walk towards the levee, it's the footbridge that goes over to San Lorenzo Park.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see, shout outs. My first big mosaic project was for the city of Santa Cruz. It would not have happened without Crystal Burns, who said, Kathleen, you need to be on a registry. You can't be on a registry without a website. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And Crystal helped me build a website. And then I said, I want to do more of these, but I want to do it with kids. And she said, well, we don't have a policy for kids. So Crystal Burns and I wrote policy for the city of Santa Cruz that got approved for permanent public art to be made in community. And then the next shout out is to Ann Hazels and Michelle Williams, who trusted me, like handed me the Ebb and Flow project, which is the 3 tree pots at the tannery. And I know that that particular piece opened a lot of doors for other public artwork that I've been doing. So it's really nice to have mentors and people who help you out. Daniela, I love you. Judy, oh my gosh, Judy. I can't tell you how many times I called Judy with the dumbest questions about organizations, like how to form and make an organization and how to keep a board going. Like it takes a village to make these things happen. I appreciate every one of you who's been a mentor and everyone who's just come by to say hi and help.
It's all really fantastic. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Very inspirational.
Great.
Yep, I think you're getting to be known in Watsonville.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Thanks for the opportunity to come back, Rosie. This was really
Oh,
fun.
I'm so grateful that you came. I mean, all of us, I'm sure, are just blown away by your presentation.
Yes.
Thank you. So, are we ready to go?
Ready to go.
I don't want it to end.
I know, your party.
Such a great night. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
It was just
All of you.
fantastic. I'm blown away by every one of you. It was just so great.
It was a perfect threesome.
Wow, Rosie and Hedwig, you guys really pulled it out too. It's really great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Woohoo!
Night, and thank you so much.
Hi, Aiden. Speedy recovery, my friend.
Yes, I think it's slowing down, but it's still moving in the right direction. So
Good, good, good.
yeah,
Good to see you.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you. Nice to see everyone.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Take care.
Good night, everyone.
Bye. Good night, everyone.
See you next time.
Thank you.